Shukrak to Mordechai Appel, who, just like last year, I think we improved year over year. Last year he came for Brachos Vayetze.
No, last year, that was 3 years ago.
That was Vayetze, Vayetze was 3 years ago? Checking out, I think
last
it's at
year was
5784. Last year was told us?
Could be.
And we talked about the Malachim, remember? Where are they coming from last year? But anyway, Shukrak again, it's a pleasure always to have you. We're thinking of the Reb Tzvi Kogan. This is Lila Nishmas Reb Tzvi, Reb Alexander Akayin Kogan. Shemin Kam Damai.
That's what today's.
Oh yeah, I know. I was a little new. I didn't want to do it, but anyway. Okay.
So we're going to share a few different ideas with you on the person. Start off by the way. Vayitke b'makom b'yom Vayitziach b'Yoshev v'Charona Vayitke b'makom b'yom Shom Kibo Hashem. So Vayitke b'makom, he arrived at the place, and as I'll tell us, Vayitke is Lashon of Tefillah. He went over there, he was mispelled. So the Gemara in Brachos tells us that Chavavim the days, Brachos says that Yaakov was Mesakin Tefillah Arvis. That was Ma'ariv. Ma'ariv came from that time. So the Rishonim explain that we know that Shachris, Mincha are both Chiyuvim, the Chiyuv going to daven Shachris and Mincha. Ma'ariv, it's a question, is it a Rishus, not a Rishus? Most Rishonim understand that Ma'ariv is a Rishus. The Rishonim are right, and Mikol Makam Achshav Kibla Aleim Chayva. Today we makabel it as a Chayv, and therefore we have to go ahead and daven Ma'ariv as if it was Shachris or Mincha. So that's how the Rishonim explain. So the Alehi Goyoin from Alehi Goyoin, somebody named Klein, friend of Roch, a friend of my father, he sent me this word. He quotes a Tanchuma. Tanchuma compares Ma'ariv, which is Rishus, to the following mashal. Let's listen well to this mashal. Says the Tanchuma, there was a father with a bunch of sons, and every Shabbos he would have a different meal by a different son. So one Shabbos was this one's turn, next Shabbos was Shimon's turn, next Shabbos was Levi's turn. Every Shabbos he would trade off. And that's how it always went. There's one of the sons, and they all welcomed him warmly. It was exciting. Tati was coming. It was a Tati's idea. Everyone was happy about it. It was one of the kids who his attitude was a little bit different. Every time the father showed up, he felt lachats. The father felt like I don't need them to do me favors. Why am I even coming? The father would come every single time with a smile, no matter what. He didn't say anything. He showed up. I told him. I said, I knew you're coming. I knew you're coming. All right. I even asked him if it's the yard says it's next week.
Come next week
too. Okay. So anyway, so this father went ahead. He would come every single week to all the kids. The one kid who always gives attitude every time, showing that it's lachats, he takes him and everything. That's what you do as a child. But the father felt it. He felt it. Everyone felt it. But he came every time. He didn't want to embarrass his son. He came every time. Fast forward a year or two, the kids got together and they said, you know what? We want to do something extra special. Shabbos we do mainly. Have to do Shabbos anyway. That's, the Tati needs a place to go. What we're going to do is, let's start inviting him. One night every week, someone else is going to invite him. One night every week, once a week is going to be a night someone takes on. This is our way of really showing that we love him. Okay? So they do that. When it came time for the child, his father said, I'm not going to go to. So again, the Shabbos meals where it's a chayiv, where it's important, and that's, the father needs a meal, it's understandable, he's going to go somewhere. He came there with a smile and he didn't embarrass him. But when it came time for this extra meal where they were showing the extra love by inviting him, says the Tanchuma, I'm not going to do it. The word of showing the extra love and everything like that, you're not showing it to me. That I'm not going to come. Says Ali Goyen, based on this Tanchumi, says that's the pshat. Shachris and Mincha, that's a choif. Whatever our davening looks like, it should look better, but whatever it looks like, even if it's a gechapta mincha, as we say, right? Person running in this night, you're running last like gechapta. Right. Whatever it is, no, there's no cover for that too, right? I know. Whatever it is, but the fact that we're davening, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, even if it's not on the best manner possible. Hashem still smiles and he looks and starts food and he takes. However, Ma'ariv, Vayifka b'makamu v'yolan sham, this was Yaakov approaching, saying, I want to show an extra love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was a resource. So for that itself, because it's a resource and you don't have to, that tefillah, in order to get accepted, has to be said over with extra love towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if our tefillah is given just memela because I'm feeling like a chayv, then it's problematic, because the Eibusher says, you know what, the stress, I don't need the lachas. And you're going to ask me for something at the end to pay for it also. Not interested. So if we want that tefillah to go, but the beauty of it is, it's a two-sided, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, the tefillah is the chayv, and on the one hand, we're davening it, and if we want it to go, it could be the most beautiful tefillah. On the other hand, if we don't give it proper respect and daven the way we should, the tefillah is going to go nowhere.
So at 2 o'clock in the morning when you arrive home from New York after a 10-hour trip, should you try to daven Ma'ariv even though you're falling asleep?
Yes, if you try to daven Ma'ariv,
you're not going to.
That's the most beautiful. That right there is the most beautiful matana. That's but it's an even greater matana than any other. If you're falling asleep, you would have been happy to stay at your source, right? Okay, so that's one idea over here. That's one idea over here that we wanted to start with. I want to go further over here.
What was when the Medrash TzehUlmad says this mashal? What does he say the mashal?
No, he talks about
He doesn't stella to Tzemar.
He does.
That's what this Ali somebody did.
This Ali guy is going ahead and he's just explaining it that we have to understand. He's just bringing out the pshat in the Medrash. The Medrash says mashal ma'adav. For them, he just says the mashal. He's just explaining the pshat in the mashal. Okay, let's go back there. Another idea. Later on in the parsha we find, right around Shishi, Perek Lamed Aleph, Vayishmas divrei b'nei Lavan leimar. Lokach Yaakov is called Shel Avinu, Masher Avinu also is called Kavod Hazeh. Basically, they go and they this is nothing new. It's a libel. They go and they say Yaakov's been stealing and this and that, all the different things. He's not who you think he is. So. Yaakov is pnei Lavan v'nei ineni imo kismol Shushan. Yaakov realizes something's off over here. The relationship is soured. Vayem Hashem Yaakov, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Yaakov, Shuv, it's time to go back home. Shuv el eretz avisecha u'meltecha ve'eya imach. Time to go home. Not negate to stay here anymore. Okay. So now, what happens now? So this is a very interesting nekuda that I saw from Moshe Sternbach. He writes, what's the next thing? Yaakov now has to speak to his two wives. You know, it's one thing he wants to leave, right? He's leaving their parents. He's got to explain it to them. So he calls in Rachel and Leah. What's he supposed to tell them now? He calls Yaakov's hands. He calls for Rachel and Leah. He says to them, I saw your father. He didn't look to me the same loving way that a stray would look at an Adam, right? Doesn't look to me the way he typically would have. Okay, he says, you know, I've been there with him all these years. I always had Hashem by my side. I worked as hard as possible. I gave it my all working over here in this business. And every single time I made money on the deal, he went and he switched around the deal on me, changed it this way, I couldn't, goes, all the different things. And every single time trying to paint me bad, I still kept on working faithfully. And he goes through everything and he says how it's not good over here, it's time to leave. And by the way, Hashem also said it's time to leave. So they respond back. So now they hear they hear it and they say, you're right. You're right, things have changed. We're also outsiders, and therefore, whatever Hashem said we should do, we're going to do. So, back to Moshe Sternbach, the obvious question over here. The conversation should have started, we should have called him in and said, Hashem, I had a meeting, and Hashem said, I have to leave. By the way, you know, it's not really good over here. That's not what happens. First, it's not good over here. He goes through everything. He says, by the way, Hashem told me so. It's a little bit backwards. So he says something beautiful. He says that there are mitzvahs from the Torah that are chukim we don't understand.
Who says?
Rav Moshe Sternbuch, listen to Tambadas. He says there are mitzvahs from the Torah that we have that are chukim. We don't begin to understand them, but we do it because that's what the Melech told us to do. No choice, you do what Hashem says. But then there are mitzvahs that are mishpat. Mitzvahs that we do have episode reasons for. And as the Chinuch always says, mitameh mitzvahs, which I heard many times from Rav Shiva of Gibson, we say mitameh mitzvahs is not tam taich as a reason for the mitzvah. Mitameh is the taste of the mitzvah. You don't truly ever know the reason, but the Torah is giving you a little bit of a taste, like a smack in it. You should have some sort of a taste for it. It says in my Sternbuch, so the mitzvahs that are mispatim, that we have reasons for, you know why you have the reason? So you should learn about it, you should appreciate it, you should enjoy it, and when you do it, you have that certain geschmack going to do the mitzvah. Hashem told you to do, but now you have a geschmack added to it. So says in my Sternbuch, over here, what happened? If he would have said, Hashem told us to get out of here, okay, we're leaving. He said, no, I want you to appreciate why we're leaving. Things are terrible for us. It's a terrible place. And by the way, you're going to get a mitzvah for doing so. So now it's gewaldig. Now, once they understand the reasons for the mitzvah, they approach the mitzvah very differently. They say, yeah, we should get out of here. We're going to listen to what Hashem says. That's how he explains
it. Because of the Tam or because of
No, now they know the Tam have a geschmack in what the David said. Again, typically it's chukim, but the ones that we have mishpatim for understand and appreciate. He was going to go whether Leah and Rachel would have agreed or not. But now he's getting them on the same page, and he's saying, by the way, you get a mitzvah for doing it.
Without understanding, you should have told them how good it's going to be, where we're going to go. You don't tell somebody, let's get out of here
we're going to go visit Esau.
No, we're going to...
We spoke about this in the past. But
he didn't do that.
Because first you got to get... First you got to get... Later on, that's it. That's the call. There's in 2015, by the Aguda Convention, the Saudi Rebbe was speaking at the convention, and he said over the following story. He's talking about how important it is to learn the Tameh mitzvahs and to learn with your children. He said the following Maisa. He said that a father approached me. One of my Hasidim, father approached me. He has a son that's a tremendous balkish. He says, I knew the boy, tremendous balkish. And this boy would stay learning from second Seder on Thursday straight till straight till after Shacharis on Friday morning. He would take a nap and straight back into learning till Shabbos. He said, and something seemed off, and he noticed that he sat there the entire night learning, but he wasn't by Shacharis. Then he came back later on to learn, and he noticed this as a pattern. And the father was chayshid. He suspected that something, that he was enjoying the learning, but perhaps he wasn't keeping the mitzvahs properly. And something on a whim, the father went and put a little piece of paper inside of his film bag and checked it. Motzei Shabbos, it was still there. So the father felt it could be the son wasn't putting on film. So he comes to the Saudi Rebbe and he says, I believe my son's not putting on film. And what should he? He goes, how do you know? So he told him. He says, okay, let me take care of it. He calls in the boy. It's Balkishan of a Bach. And he says to him, I need a favor from you. Working on a project, I need you to write me a mimer on the beauty of the mitzvah of Tzom. Sure. He wrote him a beautiful 20-page essay on how beautiful the mitzvah is. Guess what? Boy never missed another day of school in his life. It's 10 years later, long life he should have, but he never missed it again. A different attitude. When you appreciate a mitzvah, you taste it and then you can see it, right? It comes with a different appreciation. Okay, another one. Let's go weiter. Another idea over here. Eine Leah Rachash. So this pasuk is mind-boggling, I believe, because you look at Rachel, you look at Leah. The pasuk compares the two together. Chav Tes Yud Zayin. And the pasuk says, "Ve'nei Leah Rachash." The eyes of Leah were soft; they were puffy. The Rachel Hoisi Yifas Torah Yifas Mar. Rachel was beautiful. The Torah's derech is not usually to go ahead and put a flaw of one person and a beauty of another. Plus, Leah was from the Imais. From the Imais. Leah Rakis, her eyes were puffy. Says Rashi, why? Famous Chazal, because everybody knew that there was going to be there's two children to Rivka, right? And we knew exactly. Says Rashi, let's just read it inside. So he says, she thought that she was going to end up in the lot of Esav. She was crying for that. So I call him. Everyone said, "Stay baron l'Rivka, stay baron l'Lavan, hagadol l'Gala, k'tan l'Gala." So she was crying because she said, "I'm going to end up marrying a Rasa Esav." She'd cry. Okay. But again, it's to go ahead and say that her eyes are puffy versus a beautiful one. It's an interesting thing. So Chassam Sofer was asked. The famous story happened. There was one esrog. It was passed around to all different people. By the time it got to the owner, it was brown. It was brown, and it was a little bit upsetting because this is a beautiful esrog. Now, in his chidushim on Masechus Sukkah, he says it a little bit differently. That's the story that they say in Chut and you can see it. But in his chidushim on Masechus Sukkah, and Daf Lamed Vav, he writes exactly that. He says the esrog is full of splotches that has all these marks, and now it's brown from usage. He says Zu hi dura. This is the beauty, the shankite from the esrog itself is the usage marks and the wear and tear on it. It's the most beautiful esrog you can find. Tight, holding it, loving it, and caring for it, doing a mitzvah that way. There's nothing more beautiful than that. Leah's tears, what they come from? Leah's tears came from her tefillah. She was davening. She was davening to Hashem. Hashem, help me out. I don't want this. So her eyes were puffy. So the pasuk is saying, you know how we as Yidden, how we value beauty? It's not that this one's beauty contest. You see the puffiness because it's tefillah. That's the most beautiful thing possible. So we're putting beauty next to beauty. We find from the Gaon a similar type of a comment where he says by Esther. The Gemara says Esther Yakruka Shaisa, right? One Shita. Esther was the most beautiful woman. But it says one Shita said no, she was green. It's like the beautiful beauty contest? No, green. But and Achashverosh fell for her, right? For a green woman. So the Vilna Gaon explains that for 6 months, Shaman Amar, they had this type of oil and that type of oil, and all the different perfumes and things that they were doing, treating the skins, and coming from the house of a tzaddik, from Mordechai's house, this is something that, as we say, ekelzach. It disgusted Esther to sit here. I don't know if anyone knows, if anyone sees on their phone these emojis. Maybe on flip phones they don't have it. Have these emojis, right? So there's the one where you see the guy going completely green, right? Green is when you get sick. Says the guy, no, the Gemara is telling us that was her beauty. Her beauty was that she was there for so long in the palace and never once got to her. If anything, she remained disgusted to the point where she was sick. When she would see this perfume and that perfume and all the beauty pageants and things like that, she says that's lame. That's nothing. It's not something she wanted to be involved with. So he looks at that as the Gemara telling us the beauty of her. So over here you have an esrog, you have Leah, you have Esther. Again, all the same idea.
But why compare it to the beauty of Rachel?
We're talking about the two wives of Yaakov. Those are the subjects of the pasuk, right? But we're saying this is one type of beauty, that's another type of beauty. But what we consider beauty, you're going to say puffy eyes is not beauty. No, they're saying that is her beauty. So it's not just comparing one, a negative versus a positive. It's just different. It's different attributes that they had. It's interesting enough. I don't know if I ever shared it over here or not, but I saw a verse from Simchas Ater, from Simchas Shetz, where he asks, and this is an opposite direction word. He says, "Rachel mevaka al bana." Rachel's the one who cries, right? Pasuk. If I had to take the two of them together, I would have said, who's going to be the one who's going to cry for the kid? It'd be Leah. That's what I would have thought.
Rachel would be crying.
But we say Rachel Rachel. I would have said it should have been later. Yeah. So he takes the part. He says a different idea. The idea that he says is that some people they're always emotional. They're always a second away from crying, right? Because I'll say about be careful with women because they can the mois are right there, curved and next to crying. So he wants to say that the fact that she always cried, she was an emotional nature, whereas Rachel, her tears were specific tears and specific things. Okay, that's the word that he said. That's how he wants to say it. The comment back to that is still that you find with all those tears, David and Melch came from. Mashiach comes from that, right? There's miles on both sides. Okay, that's another idea over here.
That's right. It's brought down and dropped in the parsha.
Correct. Okay. Now, there's two other things I want to point out over here. First of all, quickly, just the idea of a ladder. This hit me very strong. I saw this from Rav Dessler. He writes something about he's quoting from the Chassidus farm. As we know, Michtam is loaded with Chassidus farm. We know that, right? You know, Michtam from Rav Dessler is loaded with Chassidus.
Okay.
And when he got to Panovich, a condition. This is a fact. I'm telling you, a condition of he used to give the shmuzin over there. The condition was not to say always out. Don't always quote the names of the storm that you're saying from. You can say just don't say where it's from. You're saying from Tanya, say from Tanya. Don't say. You're saying from Lukat Miran, say. Don't say the names of the storm always on it. Okay, but that's the fact. He looks at a ladder. He has a very interesting idea about a ladder. He talks about Teshalot Shma Balashma. He has a bunch of different concepts that he discusses in this mimer. And then he says that a ladder, he says, imagine if a boss would tell somebody, can you get something from upstairs, from the attic, to climb the ladder? He would never say to the guy, why are you going step by step? Just jump straight up. It's impossible to get to the top without going step by step. He says, and so it is with our Avodas Hashem. Who is the soul? It's called the Yaakov Avinu. You still have to be Mutzav Arza, Reisha Megeh Shema. You have to have a goal where you're going to get to, but step by step by step. You can't get the other way. We don't chap malachim. There's different ways to get there, but has to go step by step by step. That's a concept. He goes by Arichas into this. There's one last thing I want to just mention. I'm curious what everyone's feedback is. There's last week's parasha, and now and in the future, there's a concept of brachos over here, which keeps coming up. And so last week, the brachos, Yaakov takes the brachos from Esav, he gets them, Yitzchak gives them a bracha. What's the koyach of a bracha? Has anyone ever thought about this? Is it a tefillah? Is it a zog? Is it like a flash of lightning? Where does this power to give a bracha come from?
Big business.
It's a big business in the rabbis, right? By the way, there's a very clear, in halacha, there's a very clear difference between a bracha and a tefillah. What do I mean? If a person says a klal, if a person gives someone a klal, chas v'shalom, it's a klal that this person should die, there's a terrible einish for such a thing. Whereas if a person says a tefillah that they should die, it's not the same thing, it's just a tefillah. So there's definitely a clear difference between a tefillah and a bracha. So what is it? What's the koyach of a bracha? So we always grow up thinking that it's Tzadik Geizer, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim. So the Tzadik is a bracha, but it's hard to understand that because you find that Al Ti Berchas Hedyet Kal Beinecha. Right? The bracha of a simpleton is also. If you want to say, yeah, he's the Posher of Tzadik, he's the Lamed Vav Tzadik, he's a Tzadik. It's very tough to understand that because even by a Rasha, the bracha can be something. There's an idea based on Derech Hashem, that every person has a Tzelem Elokim, which translates to a Chelek Elokam Imal. And that means that there's a Gattlichkeit, there's a godliness within each and every person. And when he gives a bracha, he's somehow or another accessing, I don't understand what this means, he's somehow or another accessing from that godly part of him, and that's and the Eibusher goes and gives him that ability to give a bracha. Okay, that's a concept. I don't know what that means. I don't understand it.
He
Sorry? It's based on the Derech Hashem. It's no okay, but there's Alpi Kabbalah. It's a different. I don't know how do people access that, but Tzaddik obviously could. Fine. The Rav Dessler says something fascinating. This is just the last thing what I wanted to get to. He says, let's just try and paint as we say, grab a picture. This Balabaz goes on a private plane. He hears there's a Rebbe in such a place. He goes on his private plane. He has on the plane his charcuterie boards and that, and he has all the finest scotches and everything. So I'm picking him up, taking him. He shows up to the Rebbe, and he flashes a few dollars to the Rebbe, and they push him in front of everybody else. Comes to the Rebbe, asks for a bracha. And the Rebbe gives him a bracha, and it's Mekoyim. And it's fulfilled. What's that koyach? So Rav Dessler says that when you come to someone asks you for a bracha, I'm blown away by this. He says, you ask someone for a bracha, what happens? The person says, Biladah. He says, me to give you a bracha? I don't have koyach to give you a bracha. I can go ahead and I can ask Hashem, who's the Makar bracha, he's the source of all bracha, I can ask him to give you something. I can't give you a bracha. What just happened now? That Balabas or younger man, doesn't make a difference. That person who came and asked for the bracha caused the Mevarech, caused the Rebbe, caused the Tzaddik, caused the Rebbe to go ahead and tie himself into HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The person this Tzaddik went ahead and said, me, I don't have koyach, it's all from Hashem. When he said those words, he just grew in Emunah. He just grew in his realization that Hashem is the Makar Bracha. And because he did that, who caused him to do that? The Balabas. The person asking the Bracha caused him to do that. So Hashem says, he caused you to believe in me more. He caused you to steig. We'll throw him a bone. We'll give him back something. We'll give him something. So therefore, when he asks for a bracha, and because I tied into the Makar bracha, I now have somewhat of a koyach to go and be mevarchim to give him a bracha. It's an incredible concept, and that doesn't only work for a tzaddik. It's for any type of person. If someone comes to you and they ask you for, if you give them a bracha and you realize that it's the Eibusher behind, so you're steiging, you're growing. The greatest thing a person can ever do is he can say, it's nothing to do with me, it's all the Eibusher. And that comes back to Be'ivka b'mokem, B'yolon Sham, he sees up and down. He goes to sleep like a baby. He doesn't have anything. It doesn't matter. I have whatever the Eibusher wants me to have, I have. And with that Amunah, now the Eibusher says, oh, you've done that, you have that high Amunah? Good. Yeah, okay.
So I'm doing the person a favor by asking for bracha.
Yes, that's right.
It's a whole new twist.
Yeah. I was blown away when I saw it.
The Rebbe should save you money for,
Because he's the one who should
by the Sulam.
Right, because I'm helping him.
The moment had the same
Thank you.
Heard that one?
Yeah. We've spoken about this.
Oh, you said it? Sorry, yeah.
Sulam, Mama.
Mom and have the same demarcation.
They both have a name. Gewaldig.
Thank you.
Good.
This is done. What? Video's still going.